Do you work hard just to be average? I have always been third. Third in water skiing. I was third in the top third of my class. I was, I just had to work super, super hard to to be average. I mixed up what I said. I mixed up what I saw. I mixed up what I heard. And I have a picture here. This came up on my Facebook feed. There I am. I was third in the state in water skiing, 13th in the Midwest region, and yet, um, what some people would slack off to be average, I had to work really, really hard to be average. And the it what when children compare themselves to other children, uh, it's a tough place to be if you think that and if you're in an environment where you have to where you feel like you have to be like everyone else and that you have to fit in. And where in the world do we ever come up um, with the notion that we just that we're supposed to, the average is good, that um, being a um, part of a group, to be to think like everyone else, to be like everyone else, that was the norm. um, I love uh, the study done by NASA. um, it just really set me free, and it helped me, it changed my perspective on myself. So they were looking for the geniuses to hire at NASA, and they came up with this creativity, this genius test. And when they gave it to 1,600 um, 4 to 5 year olds, 98% of those kids were in that genius range. 5 years later, those same kids, only 30% were genius. And 15 years later, only 12% of those kids were in that genius range. And then they tested a million adults, and only 2% were in that genius range. I I like I said, I worked really, really hard to be average. Um, I was in the top third of my graduating class, um, and my guidance counselor told me that the best that I could do, the most that I could hope for, was to be a factory worker. And yet I had this love and this passion for children, and for children that struggled to learn, and struggled to speak, and struggled to be. And it wasn't until I started to work with these kids, and started to see some real breakthrough and some real success. I remember my very first child, Billy. I worked at an orphanage, and he was brought in, and we didn't know if he could walk. We didn't know if he could talk. He had a large head, and he was dropped off by his aunts. He had seen his parents killed in a car accident, and something within me just sparked alive, and I just loved on this child, and sang and skipped and danced, and I got him up and to the playroom, and I got him walking by singing and being happy, and being and just loving on him, and to keep his interest, and to keep him because he was crying hysterically when he was dropped off. um, I was pointing to all the little things on the wall, and he took my finger and he started to point to the things, and I would point to the letters of the words, and I would blend them together and read. And we got to the playroom, and we got to a flag, and he had me point to every stripe in the flag, and I counted. And then he had me point backwards, and I counted backwards. And then he had me point every other stripe, and I counted every other. And then he had me go every other one backwards, and I did every other one backwards. And then he had me do every third stripe, which I could do going down, but going back and doing it in reverse, I stumbled on my words, and he fell to the ground and laughed hysterically. And for months, so I knew, I just had that heart connection with him, and I knew that there was intelligence in there, even if he wasn't talking. And I would swear at night when I would, sing my little songs to him and say goodnight and tell him how much I loved him, and I'd turn off the light. I swear that as I was turning the light off, I would hear his little voice. And I'd be like, no, he doesn't talk. And I turn the light on, and he'd just be, he'd put his head back and forth, and he just had this big grin on his face. I'm like, did you just say you talked to me? And he'd just give me that big old smile. And pretty soon, um, it got longer and longer, and pretty soon it got to my face. So then he was parroting, he was mimicking what I was saying. And I had this little routine with him that where I would, pick him up, and they had a swimming pool at this orphanage, and I pick him up and I say, I love my Billy from the top of his head to the tips of his toes this much. And I would swing him around, and I'd throw him up in the air, and then we'd splash into the water. And one day he's like, I love my Karen. And I'm like, oh, like it's real. Like he's not just parroting, he's just not mimicking anymore. Like he understands, and he said my name. And it was so happy. And that just started the journey. And then, once he started to talk, then all the other workers got, really excited and interested in him. And I would take flashcards, and I would, do the flashcards with them. And then pretty soon he was reading. And so he was the very first child. And since then, I have that was 1976. I've never met a child that I couldn't teach to read, because if you do that heart connect, that heart connect, and really, there's a thing Gary Smalley does with called the love languages. If you find out, how a child receives love, we usually communicate the kind of love that we receive. So I get life, and I get energy from words of encouragement, and so I tend to be a person that gives encouragement. So you can kind of give clues, or you can just go to the website lovelanguages.com and do the quiz. And it really gives you, is one of my requirements when you come into my learning center, is to find your child's love language, because when you speak their love language, when you have to work really hard to learn, their emotional gas tanks need to be filled up to the brim. And as I started to have these experiences, went to college, I was average, um, and graduated, and I got, I got a job, but then I started to put, um, I put feet to my theories, and started to gain some experience, and started to gain some confidence, um, you know, uh, apart from high school, and not, not being being third string, being, like I said, third chair on trumpet, uh, you know, and even in water skiing, I had to work really, really hard to be third. And and it wasn't until I was forced to get my master's degree. I had to get there was not reciprocity to teach in from Ohio, where I got my bachelor's degree, to in California. I had to get my fifth year to be able to continue teaching in California. And it was then, as I got closer and closer to my passion and to what I'm really good at, um, that I went from, being an average student to being in the top three, of my class. And Still third, still not, still not, uh, still not the top of my field until uh, what was my challenge, which was the statistics. I did for my master's degree. I take a statistics class. I managed to get through. At that point, I had a 4.0 out of 4.0 average, and that was going to be my only B. And the teacher had mercy on me and gave me an opportunity to write a grant instead of doing the math part of the statistics in the last quarter. And um, and I got the grant. And for the first time of my life, I was championed, I was honored, and highlighted. And Channel 4 News in San Diego came in and gave me the Golden Apple Teacher Award. They recognized my work with I had received that grant to connect at-risk children to community members. We went into the senior center, and I don't know who got more out of it, the kids or the seniors, but it was a when you when you connect at a heart level with kids, and you help them discover their passions and their gifts and their strengths, something changes uh, eternally. Like it shifts. It shifted those kids from being at risk to being responsible, and one and for the first time, I went from being average and not being a factory worker, to being a Golden Apple award-winning teacher. And I am here to say that I am not the exception. That what NASA discovered is that our schools, um, coming from the agricultural and the farming communities and then switching into the industrial age, they literally set those schools up to produce good factory workers, uh, and to just like with the Model T, the Ford is like, how can we replicate? How can we duplicate what's working? And so that's what they did with this with the student. They planned out an ideal student, and then they formed curriculum around, well, what would we need to do to form that ideal student? And now look at what the traditional classroom has done. Now, there are outstanding teachers, there are outstanding parents, and there are outstanding students that can learn in any environment. But for the children that struggle, for the children that are labeled and identified, um, that can be a box, and that can limit their potential. Um, my name is Karen Marie. I am not a factory worker. I am a Golden Apple award-winning teacher, and I am here to say that um, I believe that every child has challenges and every child has gifts, that it's my job, it's our job to discover those gifts and those talents, and to encourage them, and to put them, those children, in an environment that helps them grow into their limitless potential. Uh, you can I'm going to put a link here in Facebook, how to get a hold of me. This is it's if you go to at-edu.com, you can find me, and you can go in, and there's credentials and some of the things that some of my awards and some of the things that have happened over the years. But and I do want to share Brian. Brian was one of our guest speakers a few months ago, and what he has to say is just super important. Here we go. Oops, there is no sound. Try this again.
See, I believe, and hopefully you believe the same thing. And if you don't, just borrow some of my belief, borrow some of Karen's belief, because we believe this. There is a treasure inside of your child. Okay? So we believe that. That's how we start the adventure. Karen, in her heart, in her mind, in her soul, she is 100% convinced there is a treasure to be found, to be meaning not cover, meaning concealed. There is a treasure to be no longer concealed within your child. And so with that state of mind, just like these watermelon seeds, even though we begin and it's so small, the journey begins with a belief that can be so small. What happens is, in the process of discovering, see, let me just show you. Hopefully you can see this. This seed, you know what this seed has in it? Let me just have it take a little guess. Like, okay, Brian said it's a watermelon seed. What does it have within it? Brian, duh, it has watermelons within it. Close. This one watermelon seed has endless potential of watermelon. See, now let's back this up and let's look at our child. When you look at your child, does your child only have a little bit of potential? No, your child has endless potential. Does your child only have a little bit of genius? No, your child has endless genius. How do I know this? Because inside of the seed of something is the seed of something. What do I mean? Inside of this watermelon seed, after it opens up, after it goes through process, after it goes through the breaking, because that's a part of it, there's some frustration. There's something on the inside of this seed that is frustrated on the inside of this seed. It's frustrated. The watermelon that eventually one day would grow has to be held within this seed, and it's frustrated. So it has to go through a breaking process. It has to change its environment. Your child and all of your child's genius, and not just your child, but you as well. See, you as a parent have genius potential too. And there's a process. There's a process. See, you and your child are working together to meaning not cover, meaning conceal. You have a dream that there is a treasure, but you and your child are going on a treasure hunt. This is where genius comes out. Because as you go on this treasure hunt, some things have to change. Some environments have to change. And you start to figure out, oh, that environment just didn't work for the child. I'll give you.
All right. And I do want to share one more thing in this show. On next month, we will be welcoming Dr. Ryan Davis. He is a doctor from Wellness Way, and he is going to be speaking to us on brain health. And we've spent the last few months really going over brain health, and let me see, let me find it. There you go. You can find it right here. Yep. And we're going to be, and he will take us to a whole nother level. I would, if I were you, I would write down this date. I would copy the link, and I would definitely join and get and ask him specific questions about your child and your child's brain health, and how to level up your child's challenges. Thank you, and I will see you next month, January 9th, from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time.